You're listening to Beyond the Buy with Alyssa Menke and Angie Graw.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Beyond the Buy. Today we are going to be talking all about brand sponsorships, and this is really Angie's territory. So I'm going to be asking most of the questions, and we'll maybe chip in like a hot take here or there, but otherwise this is the Angie show. So we want to hop right into it. When a brand sponsorship opportunity comes across your desk, where should a marketer start in terms of evaluating it and determining whether it's a good potential fit for them?
Yes. So it's always exciting, especially that local feel. If you're able to support local high schools, local sports, if you've got a university, all those kinds of things, right? You feel like it's part of the community. So it almost feels like an easy yes, but you should absolutely not just automatically say like yes. You really need to evaluate and start looking at what your goals are, like, right? We want to go back to that media strategy, that media plan that you have in place, and see how that potential partnership or sponsorship makes sense. So, just because you have this great opportunity and maybe, you're an alumnus, there's all kinds of things you could be thinking about, but you've got to make sure that it feeds back into that overall marketing plan and marketing strategy. And that it's going to serve you. So it's the right fit, it's got the right audience, and that you're going to get a good bang for your buck, if you will.
Yeah, as a business owner, we get hit up for sponsorship stuff all the time. Sometimes it's like a local sports team or whatever, but all the events, all the things. And for us, I always look back to like, does this align with, not only like potentially our target audience, but also like our company values and mission? Because with us being B2B, being out in the community is maybe not necessarily the same type of sell that it would be if the general community were buying our goods or services. Right. But it is a way that we show up in the community. And so it's really important for me that it's something that our team is proud of, that maybe helps give folks that are participating in that event or like would see us on their thing like, oh, okay, that's sort of what that brand stands for.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at it in terms of, yes, your media plan, but also the values of your organization. And great mention. Yes, we kind of tend to think of sports for brand sponsorships, but it could, like you said, really be anything. Pretty much any gala or fundraiser being put on by a nonprofit is going to have sponsorship capabilities or opportunities. Theaters are going to have opportunities for sponsorships. Lots of them, right? So lots of different ways. I'm just in sports mode because baseball tournament.
Yeah, sports moms here. So sports is always kind of top of mind. Yeah. So what are the questions that marketers should ask before they're committing any portion of their marketing budget to a sponsorship?
I think the big question to ask themselves is, who is this going to reach? So, you had talked about your core values and wanting to make sure that it aligns, and also obviously with the media strategy, but you just want to make sure that the people attending this event fit with your target demographic or fulfill that audience need that you have. Because otherwise it's going to be some wasted spend. And just because there's a lot of people who attend that event doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a good fit for your organization. So questions to ask yourself, would be things like, what do we receive in return for this investment? Sometimes they're going to come with this really great laid out sheet and it's going to tell you this is what you're going to get. Sometimes it's just like, hey, you want to sponsor? So it's always good to question and to ask to make sure that you're going to get a good deal out of it, that, it's reciprocal. It shouldn't just be about giving them the money, but also about making sure there's value and having that placement. So things like, where is your brand going to show up? If it's outdoors, if it's on a banner, if there's digital opportunities along with that. So you get the full package of what you're going to get.
One of the things I like is, do we have an opportunity to participate? Right. So like one of the things that we have done, I think every year it's been offered as Cohort.digital, Habitat for Humanity has a Women Build Day. And for me, it's a great organization. I'm happy to sponsor, but it gives our entire team the opportunity to take a half day and go help build a house, which is like, give me a power tool. Like that's, who doesn't love that? But it is a really meaningful way. One of our core values is family and, empowering women. And so it aligns perfectly with the message. But that opportunity to participate, in a different event, it might be tickets or, seat at a table or whatever. But those kinds of perks, I think, are things that the entire team can enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not just about how your brand is going to show up in their marketing around this particular opportunity, but also, some of that kind of value add that they will share with you, whether that be, tickets or participation, great things, swag,
Yeah.
And then just in the typical advertising sense, like you want to think about your reach. So it's going to be, how many people, are you getting in front of? How frequently are you? Is it just a logo on a banner, or is it a logo on a banner and social media and email? And, if there's voice, commentary or anything, just making sure again that you're getting that really well-rounded sponsorship.
Yeah, sure. So how do sponsorships sort of fit into that broader media plan? Is there a rule of thumb about, the amount of dollars you might earmark or things that you should specifically be looking for so that it makes sense?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the plan that you guys have right now. I always think it's nice to have that, but again, you shouldn't set aside a budget to be like, oh, well, we're just going to do this local thing just to do the local thing. It really needs to be a part of your broader mix, your broader strategy. And it can be really beneficial. Unfortunately, I think the problem is a lot of businesses aren't aware of all of the opportunities that are out there because there really are so many pages and pages and pages.
I think frequently businesses make the mistake of, we sponsored this because they came and asked.
Yes.
Like, that's great for them that they had that initiative, but that doesn't necessarily make it a good fit.
Right.
And there are lots of organizations out there that need sponsorship that just don't have the manpower to get out in front of you and make that ask.
Absolutely.
Like, that's one of the things that I think our team does really well is, like, sometimes we track down things that don't necessarily come to us or come to our clients and go and pitch them as part of this media strategy because we see that opportunity and that value that sometimes the event itself or the brand itself doesn't maybe understand they have or doesn't understand the appetite that like our client might see in their audience of like, hey, like you're in front of moms with toddlers and that's a really great fit for our client.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. But definitely treating it as a piece of the media mix. Really, a brand sponsorship is not going to do the thing on its own, right? So whatever your goal might be, if it's building awareness, or if it's to drive people in, get some more online traffic, etc. Really having that kind of goal, that focus in mind makes a big difference. And then making sure that you have the rest of the campaign in place. This is not a campaign in and of itself. It should be a piece of that greater plan. And it's all working together. Because unfortunately, in a lot of situations, if we are looking at sports specifically, if it's outside or even it's like you're getting the banner, right? You're getting a limited amount of space. And a lot of times it might just be your logo and a website or something like that. So making sure that there are other elements of your media mix that they can then engage with and participate in. So if they're seeing that little bit of brand sponsorship, that image, then they have, maybe there's digital ads, maybe you're geo-targeting, who knows, right? Like, so you're doing these different things to then make sure to expand upon that experience.
I really like that idea of geo-targeting and getting back, using digital to get back in front of people that attended that event, saw the brand. It's smart.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is a sponsorship that we see frequently, and by we, I mean my children, out at Kinberry, which is a local softball, baseball complex, there is a sign up that talks, it's for Culver's, that if you show up in your ball uniform, you get free custard.
Oh.
Culver's is not close to Kinberry, if you are familiar with the Topeka landscape. But I tell you, my kids in their mind, because that sign is there, think it's got to be close and we should definitely go get custard. I love that in that very small space, they have a very clear call to action and they've provided some incentive and like visually they're going to see like, oh, okay, today we gave away 10 small kids custards to kids in ball uniforms and have some level of measurement, whether they choose to do it or not, as to whether or not that sponsorship's working.
And that hits on a really good point because having that trackability, that measuring piece is really important. So for them, I'm sure there's like a special code they put in,
Yes.
some way for them to track on their end. And that's something that you want to keep in mind with your brand sponsorships as well. To an extent, it's a little bit like a billboard, if you will, because you're putting up, maybe a sign, but making sure you have it in that grand scope of things, that maybe there's a follow through action that is going to have more of that trackability and measurement. Really important, because it's sometimes hard to attribute. Attribution is not an easy one with brand sponsorship.
Yeah.
But using it as a tool, as a piece of the greater mix, is going to help overall and be easier to track that way.
Yeah. I feel like we've already talked about some of the signs that a sponsorship is a strong fit, but is there anything that like maybe you'd want to add into that conversation?
I think just those three big ones: making sure your audience is right, you're getting in front of the people you want to get in front of, that you have meaningful visuals. Ideally, like, we don't always want it to just be a logo. Sometimes that is what it is.
So yeah, as you say, sometimes
to deal with.
Yeah.
But if there are opportunities where you can provide artwork, like in a theater playbill or things like that, making sure that you are representing well.
for the love of God, if you have an opportunity to provide an ad and not just your logo, please provide an ad.
Yes. It is going to garner more value for you in the long run and for the audience. So they may be like, oh, cool, cohort.digital. Like, they don't know us, right? And so you want to
build a little intrigue, get people there. One of my largest pet peeves is when someone has the theater playbook or the, dance recital or whatever, and they just put in their business card.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
Yeah. You could have done so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's space. And, whether it's just a feel good kind of brand sponsorship or not, like you never know.
Yeah.
And if you put just a logo, you will never know.
Yes. Yeah. And because a lot of times these are going to be local entities, community-based things, or nonprofits, the people who are attending obviously care about that. And that may be enough for them to say, okay, like, I want to work with them because they support something else that I support in the community, or they just support the community in general. So absolutely, when possible, definitely include more. A lot of times too, they'll, do some sort of a social media push, or like, share some of your information out there as well. So making sure those visuals also are strong and are more than just the logo. Try to guide whenever possible, just to make sure that you're getting the greatest benefit. And then the last thing, I've already said it like a million times, but the role within your greater plan, just making sure that it makes sense and that it's going to fit into that cohesive mix.
I think that's always worth reiterating. Okay, so let's shift over to red flags. What are some red flags in a sponsorship that make you, like, when you see it, you're like, maybe not the right fit?
Yes. So vague value, right? Not knowing or not being able to really see how you're getting that reciprocation from that investment that you make. Because sometimes, like I said earlier, it's going to be laid out for you really nicely, and other times it's going to be like, oh, but because people come and watch the game. I'm like, but how many people?
Yeah.
And how frequently do you have games, and how frequently is that person coming? Because maybe there are 12 softball games in the season, so that same family is going to be out here at least,
which is helping you build some brand frequency.
Yes. So making sure that you really request, if they're not providing it, that outline of what are you getting in exchange. And definitely, if all they're going to do is put a logo, on a banner in the field and nothing else, you're going to want more than that. You need more than that, because there's none of that greater picture happening. And on the flip side, like you had said, if there's an insert or an ad that you can place, if it's just a logo that they're working with, it's not going to have that same hit, that same power and resonate. So the big logos, not being able to identify what you're getting out of that partnership is all really big. And then the audience fit, as we mentioned earlier, because there could be a ton of people, but if it's not in alignment with your goals or just, your product or service that you offer, then it's just kind of wasted spend.
Yeah. How should marketers approach pre-planning once they decide that they're going to move forward with a sponsorship?
Yes. So before it starts running, you want to make sure that you have your timeline set up.
Yeah.
Kind of like with billboards too, there's going to be deadlines, hard deadlines as far as when they need artwork so that they can produce if there's a physical piece to that.
Yeah.
Or if they're sending things off to the printer as well, they need to just know that information ahead of time. So you kind of have to work backwards
Yeah.
in some aspects and then working forward and knowing too, like, how long is this sponsorship? Is this something that is a 6 month or an annual? And do you have the ability to kind of re-up the next year? The first right of refusal is always really nice to know about. But just make sure that you kind of have that timeline leading up to what the entity itself needs, that organization, because before that launches, there's all kinds of stuff you should be doing on the back end, right? So because this is a piece of the greater mix, you need to make sure that if you're driving them somewhere, that it's set up, that it's ready to go, that they're, you've checked for bugs, there's a landing page, that it has forms, but have you got everything in place? If it's looking at the Culvers, that your local Culvers knows this is happening.
Yeah, they have the code that they're going to put in for the free promo ice cream.
They're trained on what to do. If the kid comes in their uniform and they're there for that free ice cream, the staff knows this is how we proceed with that information. Or whatever it might be, and not just in terms of the visual they're seeing, but even if there's an email being sent out that's referencing you want to make sure that you're providing the correct links, that they're going to where you want them to go. If you are trying to capture information there, make sure it's all set up. If you've got your pixels you need, if you've got a form that they want, all the things. So it's all that background to make sure that the different pieces of the brand sponsorship are really coming together to work in their best interest.
I feel like, based off of what you've just said, then we should really take a step back and say that should be another red flag of a problem, is if the sponsorship ask doesn't give you the time to be able to do all of that stuff. And we've seen that before, where it's a great opportunity, but they came to you like 3 weeks before the event, and that does not give you a chance to really fairly execute so that you're getting the most value out of that sponsorship.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of that goes into the beginning of it, and then you want to make sure that you also know what you're measuring, what you're tracking, so that as the sponsorship is in place, you know how to look back and look at what's happening, so you can get some reporting, get a picture of what's going on, and then also your checks and balances to make sure, like, okay, I'm supposed to be mentioned in this many posts or emails, and then you can follow up as needed. Or in our case, it's me. I get to. I'll reach out and say, hey.
Yeah. I didn't see this come through.
Yeah.
How are you going to make good on that?
Yeah, make sure that you are getting what you have been paying for.
Well, and so that's one of the things that I think it's good for folks to know, is that sponsorship and you writing the check and handing it off to them, that's not the end of the work they should be doing on your behalf. Yeah. There should be follow-up reporting. There should be you should be thinking about how you're going to track this, just like you track every other piece of your paid media campaign. Because while a sponsorship feels a little bit different, in actuality, it's not. It's money that, if you had not been putting it in that sponsorship, would have went towards paid media. So you need to be able to some extent, quantify it as such.
Yeah. And one thing I hadn't we talked visuals, but also if there's any copy involved, making sure you identify who's responsible for that. Is that something your team can provide copy for social or for the email, or are they going to write it, and do you get to see it before it goes out? Because always would like to see it before it goes out. For sure.
There's nothing worse than a typo or like misinformation that looks like it came from your brand that actually you had nothing to do with.
Yes.
What does strong implementation look like for a sponsorship?
So just showing up, in that venue, being clear, being concise, making sure it makes sense. Like for baseball, having a baseball themed, activity, or softball. Right. Clear, concise, fits your audience. Those three things are really important when you're looking at those brand sponsorships. And then always with the implementation, making sure, like we just mentioned, all that background stuff is there. So the landing page or the website or the whatever is all there in place, working.
One of the things that I think is missing from a lot of sponsorship stuff is when they do give you that opportunity to do an in-person something, the number of brands that don't fully execute there, right? So like, oh, a table is part of your sponsorship. And then the company sends 2 people out of the table of 8, or maybe nobody. Like, does that event or organization appreciate your sponsorship dollars? Absolutely. But also, it doesn't look great that your table's not full. So if you're not going to be able to go invite clients, invite people to go on your behalf, but then when you do go, make sure that your team that's going is there and like really representing. And like I love when a brand sponsorship includes an ad event activation where they're giving out swag and they're talking with people and they're really getting an opportunity to hype the brand up at a level that you're not going to get if no one wants to show up and fulfill that piece.
Yeah. And how awkward if you're doing all this cool stuff and they're like, oh, cohorts, here, but then it's, crickets because they're not. Or
Yeah.
like, dinner is courtesy of the sponsor or what have you. And
yeah, like when you are sponsoring the drinks that night or the meal, and then you're not there to get up and give your little couple minutes, that's usually included, or network with folks. It's a missed opportunity that is, I mean, that's a good chunk of that value for that particular sponsorship.
Yeah. Action speaks louder than, words, and being present and being there. I should say action speaks louder than money, I guess, in this case, because it's easy to give and be like, yeah, that's pretty nice. We'll give.
Well, and it doesn't.
Being there makes it.
Yeah, you see, that organization doesn't feel great about a mostly empty table up towards the front where everyone notices.
Nobody wants that.
How can marketers work to make sponsorships more measurable? I mean, that's kind of been one of the main focuses of our discussion is we want that accountability. We want to be able to attribute, we want to be able to execute on all levels. What can we be doing on the front end so that we do have some like measurable things for our outcomes that are maybe more than, if possible, like, oh, 1,000 people showed up to run in this 5K.
Yes.
Like, that's great, but.
Or it's like 1,000 people registered.
Yeah.
Because maybe only 800 showed up.
Sure.
It can actually be a lot smaller in reality. It all kind of ties back to what your goal is with that sponsorship. Sometimes it is community involvement as a greater piece of your marketing. And so for that, it is like attendance would be great, just knowing in general how many people you got in front of. But if it's about, reaching people, and if it's about getting them to engage with your brand, or maybe you're wanting to drive increased traffic to your website, what have you. So kind of depends on whatever that goal is, and then you figure out from there. So if it is really just about like awareness, if it's just kind of a branding piece, then you want to look at reach as well. So your number of your audience. I always like to factor in, that number of games, because how many times I may not notice the banners on a baseball field often, but like Hank had a tournament this weekend. And so by game 3, you're kind of like,
you had noticed them all.
I'm like, why? It's like every other panel has, I wonder why they don't have more spot. And I know, obviously I'm biased because that's part of my job, but I'm like, I wonder why they don't have more. Or on the billboards out at Bettis, the scoreboards, there's a space at the top that can be sold, but it's empty right now on most of the fields. So I'm like, then I'm like, why are those available?
Yeah. Like, who do I need to be talking to right now to get my client on that board?
Yeah, but game 1, you may not be feeling that way, right?
Well,
but once you've been coming back so many times, then you're picking up on things.
You're sitting there between warm up, or you're waiting for the game before you to like, please just get over.
Yes. Or subconsciously, like you're seeing it, but because of that frequency. So it is, yes, audience is always great to know like how many people are attending these events and activities, but then also that kind of repetition.
Sure.
So in these athletic sponsorships, you're going to have more of that frequency. But in some of these one time, you may not, right? So it's going to be kind of different how you approach that. Like if it's for a gala or a dinner, then it says like, how can we elevate this one opportunity into a bigger picture. So utilizing that space so that you have that
Yeah.
trackable option of driving them with a QR code or a link or what have you. Always a good addition.
So let's play a little bit more off of that. What should that reporting look like as the sponsorship wraps? I mean, is that like sort of a summary of the event?
Yeah.
Um,
So I think that's a great question.
because some of the things the organization that you're sponsoring should be able to bring back to you, but then also some of the things your team should be responsible. Like,
Yeah.
for instance, we should know how much traffic came to our site because we've properly UTM'd the link that we sent to them. And any QR codes or whatever that's driving traffic. Maybe we could also take a look at like social media account following. Did that particularly grow? Did we
Yeah.
get more organic traffic? Those are the things that I can think of on my end. But what are the things that like maybe they would come to us or they should come to us with that data?
So always, if you haven't received reporting from them, follow up just to see how the event went to make sure. They should absolutely be following up with you though. So if that's not happening, that's a red flag.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is, and if they're not doing that, then that probably needs to go on the list of things to overlook next year.
Yes.
Like maybe that's not the right place to be investing your sponsorship dollars.
So just that follow up of reaching out to you and saying, hey, thank you so much for the sponsorship. Wanted to let you know a little bit about what you got.
Yeah.
And that's going to be, hey, this year we had X number of attendees. And part of your sponsorship, like your logo was on this banner, but you were also in this pamphlet or program or what have you for the event. We had some screens that were running rotations of who our sponsors were. So a breakdown of kind of reiterating what you got and kind of the value that you can attribute to those different things. Just being able to outline it and let you know for sure. Because part of that's just going to be relationship management and letting you know, hey, we appreciate you. And then saying like, hey, this is what you guys got out of that. And so that also allows you to kind of cross check and say, okay, like this is what I was supposed to get. And this is what I got.
Well, and if they do come back to you with that and they come to you on behalf of our clients and you see that like, hey, we didn't maybe deliver as much here, or you went to the event and you saw like, oh, there is actually this other opportunity that we would have really liked. It's a good time to start that conversation for next year. When they're going to be like, oh, we can get access to some dollars right now, like that would be great. But it's good for some maybe some negotiations for future opportunities.
And if you work for an entity that does do some of these events, or you are putting sponsorship opportunities out into the world, making sure to that if you are sending emails that mention them and sending like social media posts about different sponsors, I always like to see a screenshot. I just like that validation. So then I can see. I mean, to me, it's no different from when I get reporting from a radio station and they're outlining what the exact spot time was. We ran at this time on this day. And so being able to see a little screenshot that shows my organization and that post.
Well, especially with like social media stuff, I may not be following or
the algorithm will show it.
That's what you say is or I am following, but Facebook decided that I really didn't get to see that one that day.
Not for you. Yeah, absolutely. So just anything like that goes a long way, I feel like, with small businesses who are putting up money for you, or even if it's a media buyer like one of us. We really appreciate those little extra details, and it just makes it that much easier for us to write like, yes, agreeing for next year.
Yeah. What are the final pieces of advice that you would have for a small business or a marketing team that is like looking into sponsorships?
Be wary of an automatic yes. We want to make sure that it really is a good fit for you, especially because some of these are pretty hefty investments. So take a pause, make sure that it fits in your overall marketing media mix, your plan, make sure the audience makes sense for you guys. Always do that. So just pause before moving forward. I mean, that's the big thing. It's just making sure you're evaluating.
This wasn't really in anything that we covered, but it's something that I've kind of come across is just because they slide you the thing that's like, here are sponsorship opportunities. if one of those isn't a good fit for you, do not hesitate to reach out and say like, hey, I noticed that your lowest level is $1,500. As it turns out, my sponsorship budget is only $500. And try like most of them I found are very willing to negotiate. They'll come up with their own, your own little benefits package.
Yeah.
Or if you look at what the silver tier is, but half of those things don't really add a lot of value to you, do not hesitate to reach back out and be like, hey, I don't really care so much for this stuff, but. And the other thing I would say is, sometimes just writing a check is not the only way to get that sponsorship.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's in kinds for goods or services, particularly if you're coming at it from a small business standpoint where maybe you're able to provide catering at cost. And those things are also of high value to them. So be really creative and don't be afraid to say no, but, and then see if you can find some middle ground, because at the end of the day, they need to put on an event and they need sponsors. And, these packages are just something that they have. It's not the only things they have, but you can't let everyone just a la carte it.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's such a great point, and I'm glad that you brought it up because that is a huge opportunity, especially if it's a nonprofit organization that you're working with. They will try to work with you.
Yeah.
So definitely don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to say like, this is our budget, or hey, I have this idea. I know at TCT, I'm on the board at the Civic Theater, and last year for Art of Murder, we had a cookie company that came to us and said, well, I'm pretty sure Jason reached out to them about sponsorship, and they were like, hey, you know what we'd really like to do? And they put like boxes of cookies on every table for the event.
That's awesome.
Huge. Yeah. So great. Great for them because one, you're giving them an opportunity to taste test your cookies.
Yeah.
And they see your branding. There was little like cards with it. I mean,
social media opportunities there for sure.
So
Like
many
who's
opportunities.
not going to post about a delicious free cookie they got?
Yeah. Yeah.
I would.
I know. I would too. Free, tasty. Absolutely. So yeah, just to reiterate what Alyssa said, don't be afraid to kind of think outside the box or ask for something a little bit different.
Well, I think that wraps up our episode on brand sponsorships. So join us next time on Beyond the Buy, where we explore the trends, tactics, and strategies driving paid media today.